A Hunter in Teyvat, Chapter 14, Fan Fiction, by Azazyel. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. I looked to Lumine, who seemed just as interested in the idea of me summoning flying enemies for us to fly upon, and couldn't help but giggle as I saw one of the large Anemo slimes floating through the sky in the distance. Could we fly on those? I laughingly asked Lumine, who violently shook her head at the thought of trust what amounted to be being a balloon to carry her through the sky. I imagine I would be using my glider more than riding upon those Anemo slimes if we were going to fly, Lumine said dryly. After a couple more minutes of talking and having my ruined guard stomp out the remnants of the flames, we attempted to ride it and realized that it was impossible to ride its shoulders without its weird pistons trying to knock us off it as it walked, let alone attack some hilichurls. Which led to Lumine sitting in front of me with my arms around her waist so I could see around us to guide the ruined guard. Lumine had already picked up how to make Anemo balls that she could shoot out of her hand that would ignite the flames of the missiles that the ruined guard would launch at the random occasional slime and wandering hilichurl that got separated from its tribe. Paimon thinks that a dozen missiles exploding and an Anemo tornado to condescend the missile's flames is a little much for a trio of patrolling hilichurls. Paimon said dryly as she floated in front of us. But I knew what she was actually thinking. You are just mad we destroyed an apple tree, and you couldn't eat all the fruit on said tree. Paimon, knowing I caught her, just blew a raspberry at me before flipping in the air to disappear. A few more minutes later, I had to dismiss my ruined guard as it wouldn't fit when we arrived at the cave where supposedly the treasure hoarders would try to snatch the supposed treasure from us after we clear out the area from the hilichurls within. Alright, Lumine, let's get this done, I said, stretching from the semi-awkward position we were holding one another on our ride, though thankfully I didn't pop a stiffy from Lumine leaning up against me. Lumine nodded with her sword flashing into her hands. We made our way into the cave, and I realized it was similar to the other domains we were in previously, as the area outside of the pre-built structures were a fog that, should someone fall into, would lead to an endless abyss according to Lisa. Or in her words, anyone who fell down into the mist of a domain has never been found, so we have no idea what is down there. One can't argue with that logic. If no one survives something, then you might as well just call it a sure death. Thankfully, with our Anemo abilities, we had a second chance when it came us falling, as we could use our gliders and launch ourselves into the air, seeing as we weren't restricted to game logic and them trying to make the traveler suck ass so they can sell their other characters. As we entered the domain, we saw a couple of large mitochurls huddling beside a fire with 12 more assorted hilichurls around them as they made their weird grunting noises to one another. Lumine, let me try to deal with the mitochurls so I can summon them later. Can you get the rest of them? I asked as we stood outside the door leading to their encampment. Yes. Lumine nodded, and then with nary a thought she shot a ball of Anemo at one of the large red barrels that were beside the group, and all hell broke loose as the reactive stuff within the barrels exploded, throwing the hilichurls around and even stunning the mitochurls, allowing us to close the distance, and Lumine began her cleansing. Mitochurls were the second stage of hilichurls development. They were a solid 4 meters tall, heavily muscular, and typically wielded a large shield that doubled as a weapon or a massive great axe that matched their height that they could somehow channel pyro energy into to create some elemental attacks, along with swinging with impunity. The sheer size and strength of a mitochurl made it all but impossible for a normal knight of Favonius to deal with them lest they have a half-dozen archers to make an alpha strike on the monster, and with how common they were in decent-sized hilichurl camps, that prevented the knights from cleaning up the weaker hilichurls that they could fairly easily kill in comparison with the appropriate training. As the duo of mitochurls whirled on me, with them wielding a great axe and one wielding a huge shield that covered more than 90% of its body, I summoned my ruined guard, already in a running motion, and the ruined guard made a mighty crash as it smashed into the shield-wielding mitochurl. I yelled as I shot out a blast of Anemo energy out of my feet, and I was shot up over the axe that attempted to bisect me. I brought my ore-clad foot down on the mitochurl's masked head in a powerful axe kick that was augmented by me shooting air from my hands behind me to speed me up, and once my foot smashed into its head, I exploded all the Anemo and aura that was pooling around my feet, creating a small explosion of green and silver energy. My ruined guard had already used its mechanical arms to rip the shield out of the arms of the mitochurl it was strangling on the ground, and with a grimace, I heard the wet crunching sound of the mitochurl's ribs being stomped upon by the multi-ton machine. The ruined guard was the perfect size with its abnormally long arms that hung literally down to its ankles, allowing it to literally use its multi-ton body to both stomp and hold onto with its arms a larger-sized foe should they bring it down. Even the other mitochurl paused, seeing the violent scene as my ruined guard seemingly killed the other mitochurl with another stomp, making the monster burst into smoke. Before the Mitochurl could get back its sense of direction, I had jumped up behind it and stabbed my saber through its neck and past its spine, so when I fell back to the ground, I used not only my own body weight but the Mitochurl's body weight as its body froze at my sword, severing its spinal nerves, to tear through the side of its neck as I pulled my sword through. "Thank the Archons these Hilichurls don't bleed," I muttered, grimacing as I fully understood why people called these ruin guards killing machines that could till the earth with farming tools and then use the blood of Kenria's enemies to water the crops. By that, I meant that I was glad that seeing a Hilichurl lifted up by its legs with one of the ruin guard's hands and with the other arms covering the head and chest of the diminutive in comparison and attempting to rip the poor bastard in half only resulted in the Hilichurl being turned into smoke rather than a massive mess being left. After the would-be grisly battle was over, I instantly dismissed the ruin guard, mentally swearing not to use it on treasure hoarders as it was entirely too dangerous unless we were honestly going to kill every single one of them. Even if I had control of the thing, unless I was micromanaging it, it didn't understand the thoughts of defeating an enemy non-lethally or even non-crippling. It was a machine of total war and had no concept of mercy. It simply killed anything it was pointed at unless I was controlling its every action, which I couldn't in the midst of a battle.